Battalion, 4th Marines, when they came in through the bush. It was like the movie in Platoon, Charlie Sheen, when after their battle, that battle scenes were so close to what happened to me on that movie. When I first saw the movie, man, I just sat there and I cried. I couldn't watch the movie. When it started coming, it was like, oh damn. And I relived all of it. And it was it took me like 4 times where I could finally sit there and watch the movie and see what was going on. Because it was so real and it was so intense. But when the Calvary showed up, not the Army Calvary, but the Marines, when they showed up, it was just getting light. It was just starting to become morning. And to this day, all I could think of is, I'm alive. I'm alive. I couldn't believe it. I said, I'm alive, man. And by this time, they were dragging enemy bodies out, and the bodies of the guys who got killed. And, they say that there was 28 killed on that day on Operation Kingfisher. It just seems like there was so many more that were killed, and there was 251 wounded. So we had streams of helicopters coming in and taking out all of the wounded. I was on one of the last helicopters out. Because my wounds weren't as bad, Doc Fitzgerald and I, only when we talked about it years later, did I find out that he was on the last medevac helicopter out. Like I was on the last medevac helicopter out. And I remember as I was sitting there in the door and looking down, I could see, like in the movie Platoon, all the bodies laying down there, the smoke still coming up, and the bomb craters all around. And because I had been there a while, I knew that I'm not safe yet. I mean, this helicopter could be shot down at any moment. Anything could. It's not over yet. So as I sat there and I waited, and then finally they flew us to the first unit was in Fubai, and literally there was just rows of beds with guys whose arms were missing, whose legs were missing, whose intestines are hanging outside their bodies, and they wrapped them in these bags to keep them fresh so that they wouldn't harden up on them and stuff. And I could hear the screams and the cries, and there was blood just everywhere, man. It was so unbelievable, and then they brought me in, and they said, I gotta let you know, man, you're gonna lose that hand, and I thought to myself, I had my hand on my chest, and I thought, I'm gonna have a hook. Man. And the tears just started coming down my face. I laid there. And then they did the surgery on me, and they gave me a local, and so they just numbed this part of me. And I went into shock. I remember I was laughing uncontrollably. And I remember the nurse telling the doctor, what's that about? And he said, he's just in shock. He's just in shock. And I was like, oh man. And they were scrubbing on it like just a piece of meat. And there was so many people in there that they just didn't have time to, like an assembly line, boom, boom, in and out. I hadn't eaten except that little bit of chicken noodle soup. And so by this time, I'm so hungry. And they rolled me out of the surgery, and my hand was on my chest. and I couldn't look at it. I laid there in bed, and all I could think of is that I'm gonna have a hook for the rest of my life, man. And the tears are running down my face, and I'm sitting there. And then the corpsman comes in, and he says to me, "Hey, man, we were able to save your hand." He said, "But it'll probably never be very good." He said, "But it's bending in a hook." And I thought, yeah, you're right about that, man. And then I said, "Hey," we call the corpsman Doc. You know, our corpsman, Marines refer to the corpsman as Doc. So I said, "Hey, Doc, listen, man, I haven't eaten in a couple of days now, man, and I'm starving." You know, he said, "I can't give you anything to eat right now because we're gonna do another surgery on you, you know, to finish up." And he said, "But I'll save you something, you know, after you come out of that surgery, I'll save you something." I said, "Okay." So I went, and they reeled me back in, and they worked on me again. And in my mind, I said, they just told me that because they didn't want me to know that they were going to take my hand. You know, so again, I couldn't look down. I couldn't look. You know, and finally the corpsman came back and he said, "Hey, man, are you still hungry?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'm hungry." And he said, "Hey, we saved your hand." You know, and he went to the refrigerator, and that's when I looked down and I saw that my hand was still there. And it was like, whoa. Well, he brought me that sandwich, and to this day I'll never forget. It was a ham and cheese sandwich on white bread. You see it? Because I hadn't eaten, my stomach had shrunk up, and I was able to take a few bites of that sandwich and get it down. And I was afraid that when I fell asleep, someone was going to steal that sandwich. So I put it under my arm like this, pressed ham, you see, and went to sleep. And when I woke up, I went straight to that sandwich and finished it off, man, because I was just so hungry.